Hey there. If you have watched some of these episodes on my channel, English Without Fear, you know that I teach and learn languages not the traditional way with grammar, vocabulary, and lots of memory work. No, I have found that learning like a little child is the best way. That is, we need to receive lots of input that is varied, different, that we find interesting, that we can understand, and through repetition of this input over many hours, our brain causes us to start to produce language. And today I want to talk about the value of repetition. And I have 3 examples to share with you. Okay, my first example comes from last month. Mike and I drove up to New York, the state of New York, all the way from Alabama. It was a long drive. We drove up to New York State to West Point, which is the college, the military academy that Mike attended for 4 years. This was for a reunion of his classmates. 49 years ago, these men entered West Point as 18, 19-year-olds, and in June 1979, they graduated with both an Army commission to be an officer and an engineering degree. And this reunion, the 45th since they graduated, took place in September over a 3-day weekend. While we were there, we attended an Army football game in the stadium. Army football games are fun. There's a lot going on. But what struck me this time was the value of repetition. So in American football, the purpose, the goal is to move the football down the field. And every time the team moves the football 10 yards, which is about 3 meters, that is called a first down. And the announcer, the game announcer, with lots of enthusiasm would say, "First down, Army, brought to you by MCOR." Well, I didn't know what MCOR was. I figured it was a company, and lots of companies will pay money to have their company name publicized. So every time Army moved the ball 10 yards, and that must have happened 50, 60 times, we heard, "Army, first down, brought to you by MCOR." I did Google MCOR and found out it's a company that makes parts for other companies to create equipment that the Army needs. But what struck me is that hearing MCOR 50, 60 times, it now is in my memory. That's the value of repetition. I might not remember what MCOR does, but if I were to make a decision about which equipment to buy, which parts for equipment to buy, and I didn't know other companies, but I saw MCOR on a list, I'd say, yeah, I've heard of MCOR. Okay, silly example, but it was a lot of fun. Going to West Point is a lot of fun, especially in the fall, the autumn, when the leaves are turning. My next example comes from my youngest grandchild. On the way home, we stopped off to visit one of our sons. They have 4 children. The youngest is 2 years and 5 months old. The kids are homeschooled, so all 4 kids are home with their mom every day, all day long. They are a very verbal, talkative family, and they read a lot. So little Caroline gets lots of rich input, repetitive input. And I am telling you, her ability to use her native language, her mother tongue, English, is astounding. It's amazing. She knows her past tenses wonderfully, including the ones that are different. Like she knows watched, played, worked, cooked, slept, things like that. But the ones that are different, took, brought, bought, read, sat, have eaten, ate, all those what we call irregular ones that you just have to learn one at a time. She's heard them enough in this very verbal family that they come naturally out of her mouth. She does not stop talking, which can be a problem for her mother at times, but it was fun to watch. So that's the value of being in an environment where there's lots of rich input. These kids play imaginative games that include talking about creating scenarios. So she has lots of playful input. Then the third example is something that I've been doing recently. I like to listen to a lot of podcasts. You know, I'm working on my Spanish, working on my German, keeping up with my French, and occasionally dabbling in Italian. In the past, I have just listened one time to podcasts and sometimes not even finish them. But recently, I decided I'm going to listen to fewer podcasts, but I'm going to listen to them twice. Repetition. And that is turning out to be much more useful, more beneficial, because I already know the context once I have listened to a podcast the first time. But then the second time around, I pick up so many more things and fill in the gaps. So I'm finding at this point in my languages, and it probably works at every level, that repetition really, really helps. So there's some interesting examples of repetition at a football game, in a typical homeschool family in America, and then me with my language learning and podcasts. What about you? Do you include repetition in your language learning? I hope so. Tell me about it. Leave me a comment below this video. Well, that's it for this episode of English Without Fear. I'm Maria. Talk to you next time.